Economist. I see you already have a thumbs up before I even get the video started. That's very cool of you. Be sure and hit the thumbs up when you come into the chat. YouTube will pick up the video and start spreading it around for more people to come in. So let's see here. It's been storming like crazy all day today. We got a little tiny break in the weather right now. Thought I'd come out and do a little bit of a live stream. It's going to be about 30 minutes before the sun sets and it goes dark. So we'll do about a 30-minute live stream today. Let's see here. What did I do today? Took the kids to Gizmos, which is a little arcade, just kind of corner little arcade downtown. And they have some old school games in there. Like I was playing old school Super Mario Brothers, which is kind of fun to play on the old school arcade games. And then pinball. Love pinball. Play lots of that. So the Avengers pinball game was tearing that up earlier today. So that was a lot of fun to hang out with the boys and do that. Let's see here. Left a couple of links down in the description for you guys to a couple of articles. Kind of like almost opposing arguments, but may not be. I mean, both of these things may actually happen, which we have a stronger dollar by Greenspan's theory, which will continue to strengthen even if the Federal Reserve reverses course with their interest rates and start moving the other direction. If they continue to unwind their balance sheet, they are going to continue to strengthen the dollar up, and that will, continue to cause the issues that we are finding around the world, where you have sovereign nations and corporations suffering from the idea that they have taken out debts in dollars that are due in dollars, and they are scrambling right now to find the dollars to pay off those debts. And it's pretty obvious that the stronger dollar is destroying nations and corporations around the world. Now, at the same time, we have another situation taking place in which that the higher interest rates, which is normally going to kill the consumer, has something different going on right now. And according to the other gentleman, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, but Greenspan was talking about the first one. The other gentleman, I can't remember his name, the economist, was talking that there can't really be a... I don't know. I guess he was saying a recession. I think he was probably saying there won't be a downturn or a recessionary issue taking place when you have loan issuance as high as it is. Now, that's something interesting to think about, is that if you have people who are borrowing money at these higher interest rates and they're not buying houses and cars, what is it that they're buying? And they're probably buying their way of life, their standard of living, trying to keep up with it. And I don't know how long that will last. That's one of the things that I kind of find interesting with this other gentleman and the way he kind of perceives things, is that just because they're not buying houses and cars doesn't mean they're not taking out debt. And if they're not taking out debt, then they must be consuming, right? So if you're borrowing this money, what is it that you're spending this money on? And then if you're spending that money into the economy, then how can there be a recession if you're spending that money? That's what his argument is. So it's pretty interesting to find these two different schools of thought, and I thought that I would share those things with you. Now, I personally kind of see the idea that the Federal Reserve is going to keep interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time to try and bring the average inflation rate down to that 2%. Not the 2% target, but the average 2% over time. And if they can do that, then they can, pretty much save the economy, which I don't know if there's any necessarily like saving the economy, but I think it's more of like saving their way of life or saving their power the way they have it set up. So anyhow, to me, I see what the Federal Reserve is up to is going to keep interest rates elevated till they can get the average inflation rate to that 2%. Also, getting it up to that 5%. Somebody asked me, what is it that I have in my mind that says that the Federal Reserve wants to get to 5% on the Fed funds level? And ultimately, that's so that they can get their ammo back. Typically, the Federal Reserve would want to drop interest rates around 5% to stimulate the economy. And last time they tried to lift interest rates, they got it to around 2.5% before the markets were so pissed off that they had to reverse course. This time around, they gave plenty of forward guidance. They have the inflationary pressures that they have to deal with. They have all the excuses in the world to raise interest rates up to that 5%, and they're going to do it. I mean, a lot of people say they're not going to quite get there. They may not, but I have a feeling they're going to go up to 5% just so they can drop the interest rates at 5% and have that ammunition to stimulate the economy. At some point, they're going to want to go negative with interest rates. And if they do that, they're going to have to get the cash out of the system, and that's digital currencies, and that's a whole other story. Hey, thank you very much, Mike, for the $1.99. Money printer, no-go burr? Nope, not anymore. It's going suck. It's going like in a vacuum kind of condition now. No longer go burr. I'm happy I don't have too much debt except for my house that I bought in 2015. Yeah, that's me too. Like I have done my best to stay out of debt since I've gotten myself out of debt. Unfortunately, I was not able to stay away from getting a mortgage. I had to buy a house. I'm pretty thankful for doing it. I am like happy with where I live. The house value, according to the ZELLE estimate, has just skyrocketed over the last year, which is not exactly a comforting thought, but it does, give me a better feeling that, if there was a downturn in the market, that I may not actually go underwater on this house, which is a little bit better feeling. But yeah, I too am like staying out of debt as best I can and plan on staying out of debt from now on. Yeah, the credit card bill starts to hurt. It sure does. And that's what I found. Like, I mean, it's pretty bad in life when, you're sitting and you're looking at like how much debt you have and where you are in life, and you're thinking, okay, my cushion is a $300 credit that I have left on my credit card before I max it out. And that's your cushion. That's where I lived for a long time. And I tell you, once you get out of that position, it really changes the way you see everything in life. Everything is just like everything's just a little bit better. Everything's a little brighter. Everything smells better. And I think it's because when you're in debt, after you get used to being in debt for a while, like it's no big deal to make these payments or have this student loan debt or this credit card debt or whatever, you don't realize how much pressure you're really under and how stressful that is. And once it's gone, you realize, man, this feels so liberating. Yeah. All right. Not an idiot. Tax if you win a lottery. Holy cow. 1.6 billion. I always love seeing you sit in that car. Well, I was thinking about it again the other day. I was just like, man, it would be really nice to have a new car. It really would, to drive around and have something comfortable, better stereo, better steering, better, smell, better everything. Everybody will look at you and say, oh, wow, man, nice car. And then I think how much a new car costs, and I think, man, I paid $500 for this thing like 3 years ago. It's still running. It's just like, I remember every time I think about this car, I remember the article, if you want to be rich, you drive a POS. So anyway, I don't know. What do you want to drive? New car or be rich? It's just like thoughts on high dividend yield stocks. Yeah, I still am into Altria. That's the only stock that I really buy into. Marlboro cigarettes, Anheuser-Busch. I don't drink or smoke, but I do know a little bit about addiction, so that's the one stock that I get into, and it has a fairly decent dividend yield to it as well. So, and it seems to have performed fairly decently through all the mess here over the last couple of years. So, dollar cost averaging into a high dividend yielding stock such as Altria, that's worked out pretty well for me. So, let's see. Who cares what anyone thinks? Yeah, I agree, man. Yeah. I mean, it's not like you shouldn't listen to anybody. I mean, that's where the information comes from. It comes from other people. So it's not like you shouldn't listen to other people. But as far as caring what they think, I mean, you should only, care as much as it concerns you, I guess. And, you take the information for what it is. I mean, you may not have to believe it, and you may not, want to believe it, and it may not, even fit into your logic and the things that you understand and know. But, the fact is that everybody else has the information that you're looking for, because if you didn't listen to somebody else, you wouldn't have any information at all. Hey, Jaws, thank you so much, man. 499, thank you. When I meet someone who is in crisis with debt, I send them to Dave Ramsey, Total Money Makeover. Nothing better than fixing the problem in your own. Yeah, to be honest with you, Jaws, I've listened to Dave Ramsey a few times, and I just wasn't a real big fan of him. Mainly because I just didn't like his take on gold, so maybe that's like, that's what turned me off from him. But when I do talk about getting out of debt and how I got out of debt, a lot of people refer to Dave Ramsey and say, hey, man, that's like, That's what Dave Ramsey recommends, how you did it. Same thing, how much better your life is once you do it. So, I mean, I do recommend everybody get out of debt, and if it takes Dave Ramsey to, get you motivated and the, tools that he suggests as far as getting out works for you, I'm all about that. So, yeah, definitely listen to anybody who's going to give you the opportunity to give you some information that'll get you out of debt. I would go for that. So, thank you, Jaws. All right. Dave Ramsey's advice is good, but limiting. Yeah. Inflation is relative. That's for sure. All right. About you, that is the caring of others, I mean. Will the rise in gold last, or will it trade with the U.S. markets for the next few months? How much of a rise in gold has there been? I mean, if I was thinking like there's going to be a rise in gold, I want to see gold at like $2,500, $3,000. Like, to me, that's going to be exciting news. I mean, anything under 1900 is just old news, I mean, I want to see like gold come into like where it should be, like $10,000, $15,000. That would excite me. As far as that goes, after that, I don't look at precious metals as anything other than an insurance policy, and I really don't care where the price goes. I don't mean to be like offensive or anything like that. It's just that's the way I look at it. There was a time when I did look at silver as something that I was going to be like rich off of. I thought silver was going to go to $500 an ounce, and everybody, should have listened to me, and I was going to be super rich buying houses and fancy cars and stuff like that. 2011 hit $50 an ounce. I failed to sell a single ounce, dropped all the way back down into the teens. I was completely under what I had paid as far as going into silver, and it just didn't work out for an investment for me. My car ended up breaking down. I had no money. I had this big box of silver. I call up my buddy. I said, "Hey man, you got that Tahoe for sale?" He says, "Yeah, I sure do." So we trade silver for it. He said, "You know it." And I traded some silver for a car, and I had wheels again, and I thought, man, that's pretty cool. So silver is an insurance policy for me. It's not an investment. I don't even look at it as an investment. I really don't care what the price is. The only thing I care about is stacking more of it going into the future in little tiny increments, not even tiny increments, like, anywhere from $50 to $100 a month would be like me to be like a normal like purchase of silver, and you do that every single month forever. Like, and just always have it in case of an emergency. It's something that's out of the third party claim to anything. You don't have to worry about like an app on your phone or an envelope or a bank account or anything like that. You just have to, just worry about protecting it yourself, and it's a physical item, so you get to take it with you. It's different from land. Land, if you needed to, come up with a little bit of money, you have to take out like an equity loan or something like that. It's hard to sell off just a little tiny piece of land enough to deal with your needs at the time, but it's really easy to sell off a little piece of silver. And anywhere you are in this country, you're most likely going to be able to sell that silver fairly quickly, like within hours of trying. So, yeah, silver's an insurance policy, not an investment. In my opinion. Like, I mean, if you can invest with it and make money, go for it. But I don't look at the price and it going up as anything special unless it hits like something significant, like way up there. Silver starts jumping over $50 an ounce, and I might get a little excited about that. Hits 100, I might actually sell some. I appreciate how well you explain these complex concepts and how you keep politics out of it. Thanks. Yeah, well, I used to be very political. There was a time when I was like, probably around 2008, I could tell you every single congressman, congresswoman, all the political bullshit that was happening on TV. Like, I was into it. And when Ron Paul got blackballed out of the Republican Party from all the debates and all that other stuff, I was like, piss on you guys. I'm done. I'm done with politics. I am not paying attention to this anymore. And I started diving into a lot of other stuff, and I really kind of got into conspiracy theories, and then really started getting into some heavy stuff that you probably shouldn't be studying or looking at. And that turned me off from everything altogether. I was just like, okay, that's it. I'm turning my computer off, and I'm not looking at that stuff for a while. And I didn't for like a year and a half, 2 years. Like, I was like I didn't carry a cell phone. None of that stuff. I was completely like Luddite kind of thing. And then, what was it? Snowden. That was it. Snowden comes out and everybody starts freaking out about how they're tracking you on your phone and stuff like that. And I've been telling everybody, I'm like, man, they've been tracking you on your phone this whole time. That's the whole reason why I've been protesting and not carrying a phone. And now that everybody knows, it's like, well, my protest is over now. I don't have to worry about that. So I got my phone, and then actually like a year or two later, I started the Uneducated Economist. So it's kind of funny how I went from like carrying nothing at all, being completely away from carrying any kind of device or using any kind of accounts or anything like that, to like being all over the damn internet now. Hey, Keto Sister, thank you for the $4.99. A hot cocoa for Freddie. He did a great job the other day. Thank you for bringing him on the live stream. Yeah, that was his idea. He was like, Dad, I'm bored. Let's go do a live stream. And I'm like, yeah, let's go do it, kid. So yeah, I'll definitely go buy him a $4.99, or take the $4.99 to go get him a hot chocolate. It's one of his favorite things. And I appreciate everybody who's donates through like the PayPal and stuff like that. I use all those donations to take the family out, and today that's what we did. We actually used the PayPal donations to go to the arcade today and play the video games and have fun over there doing that. So I thank you guys, and the family really appreciates it. I mean, it's like all the stuff that I put into doing this channel and stuff, I reward them with the donations that you guys provide for it. So it's like more about giving back to them, for letting me do this, or not letting me, but putting up with me doing this, because I don't really ask. I just go out and do it. It's like, okay, guys, I'm out of here, and they're like, oh shit, okay, Dad, see ya. All right. Gold is sitting at $16.89 an ounce, and definitely a little spike, but not my hunch. Maybe $60-ish an ounce. Yeah, and so like I said, unless it gets up to over $2,000, I'm not going to really pay attention much. And then, I mean, not like pay attention to the point that I was like ignore it. Like I'm just not going to get excited about it. Once it gets over $2,000 an ounce, gets up to $2,500 an ounce, then I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to it, seeing what the other people's reactions are going to be, what the banking institutions are going to be up to with it. But sitting at $1,600 an ounce, I mean, shit, we hit $1,900 an ounce back in 2011. I mean, it's like these prices are 10 years old, Gold traders make money by predicting panic. Gold pops right before market crash. They sell off and start buying the markets. Interesting. Silver should already be 50 or more, and gold 3,500. Platinum is what tells me the real market. Yeah, I have a little bit of platinum. Like I have not very much, like a little 10th ounce gold or 10th ounce coin of platinum. But the one thing that, and I mean, it might be a good indicator as far as following to, predict like where markets and, where metals go or whatever. That might be a good indicator to follow. But as far as like the actual possession of platinum or palladium, anything other than gold and silver is going to, in my opinion, is going to be difficult to liquidate in a quick fashion. Like you can find people who will buy it, no doubt, but finding quickly, like to me, like if you took an ounce of silver, like a silver eagle, and you went around to coin dealers, pawn shops, jewelers, you most likely are going to be able to sell that ounce of silver pretty quickly and fairly close to the spot price. Even if you couldn't get it from one of those guys, you start hitting the bars, eventually you go into all the different bars and taverns or whatever, you're eventually going to find somebody who will give you something fairly close to spot price for a silver eagle if you just ask. So to me, like silver and gold is very easily liquidated, where the other precious metals like platinum or palladium may be a little harder to find somebody to liquidate that particular metal quickly. Caused only 25 days of diesel causing of refineries that's what's driving inflation. Well, okay. Inflation is something that takes place after time in the market. Like it takes a while for things to start working their way in. It's why the lifting of interest rates from the Federal Reserve has not really put a damper on inflation yet, is because it takes time for it to work into the scenario. Now, of course, if you're listening to the economist, saying that you're not going to have that happen because there's more people taking out loans and stuff like that, combating the inflation. But the theory behind it is that if you lift the interest rates, that you're going to put a combat, you're going to push down the inflation scenario. With the diesel prices moving up as quickly as they are, or the shortages moving into conditions as quickly as it happened, has, in my opinion, has not had time to put the cost push inflation into the economy yet. Like, all the inflation that we're experiencing now came from issues that were taking place, months ago, not issues that are taking place now. The issues that are taking place now will have impact into the future, of input costs going into inflation and stuff. But as far as the prices that we're paying right now, I don't think the shortage of diesel, or at least the threat of a diesel shortage, is what's impacting the prices that we are experiencing today. It will going into the future if it continues. All right. What got the nice move on metals on Friday because of? All right. Unfortunately, Bat, you are correct, pal. I still have thousands of ounces of silver and gold. All right. Bankruptcy attorney will be the busiest people around, I'm afraid. Probably. I wouldn't be surprised at that. If the dollar becomes stronger, wouldn't. If the dollar becomes stronger, wouldn't. I don't know what some of these questions are about. All right. That's what I meant. It's 3/4 of an ounce if you want to buy it. Saw one dealer offering $10 over spot price for silver. Egads. Man, remember the days of like 35 cents an ounce over spot price? Like, I remember seeing, people advertising that, or advertising like, a 10-ounce bar for free. If you bought 100 ounces or something like that, they would send you like a 10-ounce bar. It was just incredible, some of the deals they used to offer people. And now it's just like, the premiums are off the charts. Everybody's wanting in on it. All right. USD is back to parity with the euro. Is it stabilizing? I don't think you're going to find, I think here in the United States, we're going to have some issues. I think mainly this is something I was going to talk about in another video, but I guess we can just bring it up in that other video as well. But one of the things that we're finding going on right now is that the United States is getting back into manufacturing, right? Because of all the crap that happened during the pandemic and the severing of the supply chains, and all the just-in-time delivery services had pretty much caused everybody's business to be damaged from it, right? They've moved from this just-in-time to delivery to just-in-case delivery. So they now have warehouses full of inventory and trying to source out more locally. And they're trying to bring manufacturing closer back to, to the location in which that the consumer would be. So here in the United States, we're trying to get manufacturing back closer, either within the United States or closer to the United States, or try not to be reliant on so much globalization. Okay, so you guys understand where I'm coming from there. If we bring manufacturing back to the United States, there's an issue that we have going on right now, and that is the Cantillon effect is not going to allow it to succeed. And that, I know a lot of people might shake their heads, and you can say political bullshit stuff that can happen, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just go back and read Cantillon's essay about it. It doesn't really matter what you do as far as putting rules and tariffs and subsidies and all that other stuff that goes in with it. It's not going to work. It will only be temporary fix. The inevitable poverty conditions will hit the United States at some point. There is very little doubt in my mind that will take place. How long it takes, I don't know. And if there can be changes to the way the monetary system is set up, basically going digital and negative, then the theory would change, right? But we don't have a central bank digital currency. We don't have a cashless society, and we don't have negative interest rates yet. So because we don't have those things in play, then the theory still plays out in my mind that if you bring this manufacturing back to the United States, it's actually going to be more damaging than if we had just continued on attempting the system in which we had already established, because the manufacturing coming back to the United States is going to be a problem. Here in the United States, manufacturing and distribution to the rest of the world will be very expensive, meaning that we might be able to buy our own stuff, but we won't be able to sell that stuff to the rest of the world, or at least the rest of the world won't be as keen on buying it because it's going to be so expensive. Now, we typically buy stuff from the rest of the world. If we buy stuff from the rest of the world, what gives us business here in the United States is that consuming, right? The actual purchasing of stuff. So if we don't have stuff to purchase here in the United States, we don't have a business. I mean, that's weird to kind of wrap your head around, but we need to have stuff coming into this country in order for us to buy it, in order for us to have a business. Like, we're a consuming based country, not a manufacturing based country, but we're trying to establish manufacturing back here in the United States. Okay, so once we establish this manufacturing back in the United States, because of the severed supply chain and the just-in-time delivery service being broken, now we have manufacturing here in the United States that is very expensive and hard to distribute to the rest of the world. Once the distribution networks open up again, then foreign competition will start coming in. And the only way to deal with that is either government interference with subsidies or tariffs or something of that nature. And that won't last. It's pressure that shouldn't be there. It's burdensome to the taxpayer, all that stuff, where the idea of having that new money coming in through manufacturing. So basically, if you manufacture and distribute to the world, you'll have new money coming in. It won't happen that way. The only way we have new money coming into the system is if we borrow money from the rest of the world. The only reason why the rest of the world would borrow money from us is because we buy their stuff. But if we're not buying their stuff because we're manufacturing ourselves, then we won't have new money coming in. We're still going to go into poverty. No matter what, poverty is the end result of this. The only thing that would prevent it is a central bank digital currency, cashless society, and going into negative interest rates. And I'm not trying to say this is what we need to do because this is the best way to go about it. All I'm saying is that if it doesn't go that way, everybody falls into poverty. So get ready for that. Better get your gold and silver and Bitcoin and, canning supplies, because that's going to be a very difficult road if that's the way it goes down. And I can see it happening that way. All right. The only manufacturing that should be brought back is anything that is a security risk. It doesn't matter if it's a security risk or not. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, they should, just for the security purpose of it, but that would be it. You would have to invest like taxpayer money for security, and that would be the simple, not for a profitable reason, not for a good business decision, not because of a proper capitalistic fashion. They're doing it because of fear, because of security, right? That's like something that is not a viable way of going about it. It's like it's not going to last. It's a pressure thing. It's like it's not free flowing. So, I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't happen again. It's just like, it's damaging in the end, but it's just like it's a matter of like what can be more viable to an economy. Something that you are forcing to happen or something that just naturally occurs. I mean, you think about it, it's how the new money comes into the system. That's where the biggest problem really is that in order to get new money into the system, we have to borrow that into existence. And borrowing it means that we have to get it from other nations or other people. We can borrow it ourselves, but it's not it's not going to work if just to borrow and consume your own stuff. What you have to do is borrow from the rest of the world and consume their stuff. Or you have to manufacture, sell them stuff, and get new money in that way. But either way, you have to have new money coming in. And if you don't have that new money coming in, you fail. And so manufacturing here in the United States, expensive stuff, won't bring new money coming in. And that's the problem. Anyway, I don't know if I'm explaining all that right. Please vote accordingly and for the lesser evil. No, absolutely not. That statement right there, I will not do. What you just said is to vote for evil. I won't do it. Right? That's why I don't vote. Voting for the lesser of evil is still voting for evil. Why would you do it? All right. Question. Central bank digital currency. What role does the central bank play in this? So I don't know exactly where the question is supposed to lead to, but the central bank digital currency and what the central bank's role inside of that. I mean, to me, the central bank digital currency, as far as like the rest of the world goes, is just little more than establishing of an interest rate that's probably going to be negative, and to get cash out of the system, be in a cashless society, force people into the banking system, and then force a negative interest rate to it. Um, Something that I find interesting coming from the Federal Reserve is that they have stated a few times now talking about stable coins, and that stable coins are already a dollar equivalent to a digital currency that is in use today, being used today. And now, if you think about some of the other statements where monetary policy transfers through anything that is pegged to the dollar. So, if a particular nation has a dollar peg, so they have pegged their currency to the dollar, whatever the dollar is worth, it's one-to-one trade with their currency, and they peg it to that to make sure that it doesn't change. And all monetary policy that comes from the United States transfers into their country through that monetary policy peg, right? Through that pegging of the dollar. Well, if stable coins peg themselves to the dollar, then the monetary policies of the Federal Reserve, regardless of them having their own central bank digital currency, will transfer into the stable coins that are already in play today. People may not even realize it, but the central bank digital currencies could already be in use and ready to go. Like, spread out around the world. People are trading with it. People are holding them. Things like Tether, like whether or not they actually have the dollars backing them, but they exist already and they're very popular. In fact, I was going to do a video talking about that. I have all these video ideas that I want to do. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Robert Shields Jr., for the $1.99. Russia, China, India, LV petrodollar deflation. Um, Okay. Again, like, there is going to be a transferring out of using the dollar for world reserve currency. I mean, it's already happening. I mean, nations like this are already starting to take place. They're going to do it. But here's the problem when you think about it on a world scale, is that there is no other currency out there that even remotely comes close to what the dollar is doing. So you may have traded with Russia, right? So Russia sells oil to India, right? And India, purchases that oil using rubles, right? But now India and Russia, they may have rubles or the rupee or something. Now they need to use their rubles and rupees to go off to the rest of the world and start buying stuff. And the rest of the world isn't really interested in rubles or rupees or yen or anything else, right? What they want is dollars. Like, they might take a little bit of yen, but they don't really want yuan. They may take euros, but they don't want anything else but dollars. Dollars will definitely buy them food, and dollars will definitely buy them energy. Now, whether that lasts forever, I mean, I know it won't last forever, but it doesn't seem to be changing tomorrow. I mean, as far as whether or not those countries are going to trade in the dollar, they're definitely going to trade in the dollar. In fact, the dollar continues to get stronger. It's causing them to go hungry and have issues with buying energy, from other nations around the world, because all those other nations want dollars and they can't get them. And so the dollar is causing nations and corporations around the world to suffer, and they're soon going to start dying because of it. King Dollar is going to destroy the world. It's like, if this continues, this strengthening of the dollar, it's going to be devastating for people. Like, I don't mean to laugh at it, but it's just like, it's going to be bad. I mean, and to the point that you see famine and, mass, like, warfare and stuff like that, as people don't know how to deal with, like, deal with the pain of going hungry and no preparation for it. All right. People suck and don't represent other people well. Vote on laws if you can. All right. Please vote accordingly and for the lesser evil. Ugh. Just no, man. You know, vote, write in your vote. Write in your vote. Write in the person that you truly think that should be there. not the person that you think should win, or the person that's going to win, or the person you don't want to win. Don't vote for him. Like, I mean, I've seen people vote for the other guy just so this guy doesn't get it. It's just like, how voting for somebody just so the other guy doesn't get it. Do you realize, like, this person that you voted for just so the other guy doesn't get it may be making decisions for you that are completely, like, against everything that you had ever thought that you would vote for? I mean, you know, you're like, I just don't want that guy to get it, whatever it is, like, because I don't like his ideas. But this guy might have some bad ideas too, but you don't listen to it. You don't want him to be there. You just don't want that guy to be there. Ugh. Just vote for somebody that you do want to be there, you know? The public sucks, I hope. George, I don't even know why I'm even talking about this. I don't care who you vote for. All right. So it's bad for the dollar to become strong. I'm not saying it's bad for the dollar to become strong. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that there is nations around the world who have taken out a lot of debts in dollars that are due in dollars. And if they don't get those dollars, they're going to start suffering from that. Take a look at what's happening in Sri Lanka. I mean, those people have suffered majorly because they had taken out a lot of debts that were due in dollars. And when they could not get the dollars into their nation, either through tourism or, you know, transferring of goods through their ports or whatever it was, they weren't getting new money coming in. And without that new dollars coming to their country, they weren't buying food, and their people started to starve. So this is the situation that a lot of nations are going to suffer through. I mean, you know, look at all the crap that went down with China and their property developers over there. I mean, Evergrande had taken out a lot of debts in US dollars. Now, they owed most of their debts in their sovereign currencies, like most of these nations and corporations do, right? But they have taken out a significant amount of dollar debt, and that is what determines what their interest rates are going to pay for even their sovereign, you know, currencies and stuff that they pay. The dollar denominated debts are the important ones. Those are the benchmarks for all the rest of it. And if they can't pay their dollar debts, then they're not going to be paying the rest of their debts, and people know it. And the investors start demanding that they get, you know, higher interest rates for their loans that they, you know, they give those corporations. And so because they have a hard time getting those dollars, well, then they have a hard time continuing to function. And then when you have people who have been promised that future houses are going to be built, and they're making payments on these future houses that are going to be built, and then they realize those future houses aren't going to come, and they don't even have anything to go and claim because there's nothing even out there. They just been paying on something that's a promise. And then you have some pissed off people. And now how do you fix that? Sort of feels like everyone but Russia and the US is going to go hungry, and their food should continue to get more expensive. It will. It's going to get really bad out there for some people. And some nations are going to have, like, some major food crisis situations happening. The United States is a major exporter of food. So here in the United States, we're not going to have to necessarily worry about having food within the country. The problem with it is that it's going to be so damn expensive, nobody's going to be able to afford it. So only the rich will eat comfortably. Everybody else is going to have to suffer. And as the rest of the world is suffering with hunger, they're going to start paying a lot for that food in order to get it, which is going to start driving up the food prices here in the United States. When that happens, the farmers here in the United States are going to want to take advantage of that. And they're going to start producing a lot of food to start exporting to the rest of the world. This is my prediction of what's going to happen. They're going to start exporting that food to the rest of the world as they're going to get top dollar for it. That's going to drive a lot of investment into these farmers. These farmers are going to take out a lot of debt. They're going to expand their farms to do it. Then the rest of the world is going to eventually catch on that they are no longer going into deeper, darker times, but actually coming out of the deeper, darker times, and they're going to start producing for themselves. And part of producing for themselves is going to be the food, because that's generally the first thing you're going to want to produce is food. Then the United States won't be exporting this expensive food to the rest of the world. They're no longer going to be able to make their payments, and you're going to find farms and corporations who have been built up around that failing miserably because of that. And then we're going to have food shortages occurring here within the United States because of that, because of the lack of farming that's going to happen. we may even find ourselves in a depression era because of that. Pretty good story, right? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Who knows? All right. Growing season over. Yeah. Eat the rich. Yeah. West Coast almost dark. It's 3 p.m. in Hawaii. Yeah, it's starting to get dark, although the camera's still picking up quite a bit of light. Farmers were exempt from the military in World War II. Even though times are going to get tough, I'm just glad I live in the US. The rest of the world looks like the clouds are going to hover over the world. Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's really any other place in the world that I would rather be living right now than in the United States. That may not be the case forever, but as far as right now goes, the rest of the world is going to be suffering because of the stronger dollar, and we're going to be able to buy the stuff from the rest of the world for the cheaper price. I mean, it's coming. I know it's hard to believe right now with all the inflation. I mean, I just went to the grocery store and spent more money at the grocery store than I have ever spent. And I mean, it's just like, it's definitely, the impact is out there. But give us some time as this strong dollar starts ripping around the world and creating the havoc that it is. You're going to start finding that people are going to be sending the United States their stuff to get those dollars to pay off their debts. And it's gonna surprise the hell out of everybody. Thank you very much, Kindreds, for the $4.99. I'm new to this channel, and my question is: are you familiar with Tom Luongo? If so, what do you make of his theory? Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with him, but hopefully, I can take some time to go and check it out to maybe give you an opinion. I'm going after high-end watches. Yeah, I don't know if I would go after the high-end watches. There was articles coming out of China talking about how all the luxury items that these people have been buying during the good times have been gone on sale. Like the rich were selling these like expensive watches for like, you know, 50% of what they had paid for them. So I don't know if high-end watches is necessarily the thing you'd want to get into right now. I think luxury items are not the way to go. I think it's going to be necessities and survival things. Basically, basic necessities are going to be the place to go, in my opinion, at least for the next couple of years. The infamous NYC. Thank you so much for the $10. I really appreciate that. I am looking at buying some property in Mexico. I have always said it be prepared. I always said it'd be prepared to buy abroad just in case once it goes there will be blood in the streets. The time to buy is now while people taking the money. Yeah, I mean, if you can afford property, I mean, to be honest with you, if you can afford property and it's not a big deal, like it doesn't take all your money or doesn't hurt you that bad, to buy property in like Mexico or other places in the United States so that you could just bail out or get out or just have for future investments or something. Property is something like land is something that they just won't produce more of. Like there's only a certain amount of it, and if you can get it in a good location, then you have something that's probably not going to lose a whole lot of value over time. I mean, it's generally most of the time it ends up gaining value. So land is a good way to go. I just get nervous about land if that's the only thing you have, because if you ever need a little piece of money, getting that little piece of money off of that land is a little difficult comparatively to like silver. Anyway, I don't know what I'm trying to say. We'll turn that on for another few minutes here. All right. Lots of dressed turkeys in the grocery store this year. Yeah, I bought a turkey just in case because I heard there was going to be a turkey shortage. And I'm not like buying it out of panic. It was just like we were just at the grocery store today. So it was just like, well, let's get a turkey and just throw it in the freezer so we have it. Hey, all-nighter. It's good to see you. I was wondering if you were going to show up. Hadn't seen you yet. Calling 4 on the dice. Yeah, we got deuces going there. John, how many in your family? 100 here in the Massachusetts does not go far. All right, very true. The Saudis create islands for fun. Yeah, I saw that. The Palm Islands and stuff. The thing is badass how they do that down there. I may go dispatch a goose for Thanksgiving. Yeah. I remember one year I didn't have the permit, but I had gone out hunting with a buddy of mine. I wasn't shooting. I was just going out and calling, calling geese with with my goose call and stuff and just hanging out with my buddy. Well, anyway, he had, we had shot this goose, he did, and I kid you not, it was like one pellet to the head, right? And it killed this goose. And so this thing was like perfect. Like normally when you shoot waterfowl, you have like damage to the body, and the shot ends up like blasting part of the duck, especially if they're close when you hit them. But this thing was like absolutely like perfect. And this was funny about this. I don't know why I'm telling you guys this goose story, but anyway, so I take this goose home and like take a lot of care, and I clean it up perfect, right? I mean, this thing looked like it came from the store. It was like just absolutely perfect. And I don't know, I was probably like, I don't know, my wife and I were probably like in our early 20s. We were like, I don't know, 22, 23 years old. And so I was just like, hey, baby, look at this. I got this goose all cleaned up. Like, you want to you want to cook this thing up? And she's like, oh, yeah, I'll cook that. And she throws it in this crock pot. And I don't know what she added into it. She just threw a bunch of crap into this crock pot and cooked this goose. And it stank so bad. Like, she cooked it like kind of through the night. Like, we did it at night. And, I don't know. Anyway, like the next morning, I just remember the house. It was like, it just permeated the house. I was like, oh, God, this thing reeks, So I took off. I just went to work, and I'm like, hey, you deal with this. And anyway, in the crock pot, all the meat had like pretty much fallen off the bone, right? So she had scooped out all the meat out of this thing and had it in a Tupperware. And all I could think of when I got home, because she had cleaned it all up and she had this Tupperware full of this goose meat. And all I could think of was the smell that I had remembered when I had taken off in the morning to go to work. And so she has this Tupperware over there, and my buddy comes over, and I'm like, hey, man, you want to try some goose? And he was like, yeah, dude, I've never had goose before. And I'm like, well, here, man, this is that goose that my buddy shot the other day. Sarah cooked it all up, and, go ahead and try it out. Tell me what you think, because I thought for sure it was just going to be a nasty thing. He takes a bite of this goose, and he's like, dude, that is pretty good, And I'm like, what, are you serious? I take a bite of this thing, and it was. I don't know what she had done, but she had cooked this thing in this crock pot and stewed it all down and got it, the meat to fall off the bone. It was tender, it was tasty, and it was by far the best goose I ever had, because after that, anytime I had ever eaten wild goose, it was so nasty and gamey. It was hard to even like stomach any of it. But that one day, that goose that she had cooked was by far the best one I ever had. So wasn't that a fun story? All right. I used lemon, lime, and 7-Up. That's right. It was lemon. It was the 7-Up. That's right. That's her right there on Dishes Every Day. That's my wife's channel. All right. Wild turkey isn't that great. All right. So, who released COVID? Was it China or the U.S. to bring back manufacturing? It wasn't to bring back manufacturing, right? And it wasn't like, I mean, if it was done on purpose, I mean, if there was like, this was done on purpose, which, from the theories that I have, if the Federal Reserve in the United States didn't have the pandemic, we would be in a full-on economic crisis right now. The pandemic gave them the unusual and exigent circumstances to set up the special purpose vehicles in order to bail out the financial markets, especially when it came to the corporations. I mean, what's the hardest part about a recession, right? One, all the unemployment that people have to suffer through, and two, trying to bail out the corporations, because people absolutely hate that. The taxpayer hates the idea of the government bailing out corporations. During the pandemic, there was an unusual and exigent circumstances that gave the government and the Federal Reserve the ability to set up a special purpose vehicle to bail out those corporations. And they didn't even really have to do it. All they had to do was just have the facility and the credible threat that they were going to do it, and the markets went out there and tried to front run the Federal Reserve by buying up the corporate debt before they even had a chance to do it. The Federal Reserve sat back and just said, good job, boys. The market took care of business for us. So the whole pandemic and COVID was not to bring manufacturing or anything like that. It was to establish those special purpose vehicles. It was to bail out the housing market. It was to bail out the corporations. I mean, you think about it, the housing market got a bailout during COVID, right? Like there should have been a housing market crash taking place during 2020. We were headed right for it. Oops, shit. We were headed for it. There was an obvious sign taking place. I mean, just go back and look at all the YouTuber videos from the end of 2019. Everybody was talking about recession, housing market crash. It was obviously on its way. And then boom, COVID hit. And then they told everybody, don't make your payments. Don't pay rent. Don't pay house payments. Don't worry about getting foreclosed on. Don't worry about any of that stuff because we got this illness that we're going to have to take care of. And so no worries about any of that stuff. And it completely covered up that housing market crash. People who should have been foreclosed on, naturally foreclosed on. They lost their job. They had a death in the family. There's some reason that they should have been foreclosed on. I mean, these things naturally occur in a regular, mortgage market. A healthy mortgage market would have foreclosures in it. Nope, not during the pandemic. Cover that stuff up. So even the people who should have been foreclosed on didn't get foreclosed on. That's the reason why we have such a lack of inventory and the prices of houses went through the roof. We didn't have to do with like anything else other than the manipulation coming from government. That will find its equilibrium at some point. Now, if they can hold on to the idea that there's not going to be a lot of manufacturing of new homes out there, that might keep the inventory levels low enough to keep the housing market from crashing. Whether that happens, I don't know, because we could still see a wave of foreclosures coming onto the market due to unemployment, but we don't see the unemployment rising yet. All right. Once we see the unemployment rising, then we'll be concerned about people not making their house payment. If they're not making their house payment, then most likely they're going to go into foreclosures. And then we could see the inventory levels begin to rise at that point. But it's not coming from the new manufacturing of homes. Like the builder sentiment is not bringing inventory back to the market. So if there's no new inventory and there's not a lot of like foreclosures on the market, then how are house prices supposed to come down? Right? They can come down just from the fact that people can't make the payments, because the interest rates go higher. But are we going to see a crash? I mean, yeah. If we have unemployment rise and people quit making their payments, or the builders go into crazy overloading of inventory by building too many houses, but that isn't happening yet. So, the Federal Reserve has conditioned this market into a place in which that there may not be a housing market crash, even though we go into a recession. I mean, you got to think, these guys plan out and have a strategy for everything. There was a plan set up prior to COVID hitting this country. There is no way that they sat down and go, okay, guys, we got a major issue coming. Everybody's going to get sick here real soon. We have to have a banking plan right now. Go set it up. Go do it, boys. Go figure it out. Right? No way. Like, they knew what to do when this hit. Like, they already had us. It's like, okay, COVID plan. Here we go. Step one, set up special purpose vehicles, right? I mean, this is like how it went, There's no way that they figured that thing out on the fly. No way. It didn't happen. Unfortunately, the total amount of the Americans have in savings has tumbled from the relative high after the pandemic stimulus. They won't want to take out loans, so demand is going to go down fast. Yeah, and see, now that I believe that very same thing, but apparently, according to the gentleman in the description, the article in the description I leave of this video, he's saying the opposite is taking place. And now it may be houses and cars that they're not taking out loans for, but they're taking out loans for something. It's probably for their survival, right? If you don't have a savings, right, then you have to come up with the money from somewhere. And if you have to come up with it from somewhere, the somewhere is by borrowing, right, or working more. That's the only other way to get it. So I don't know. Like, I have a feeling that we are going to see, like, because that was another thing. My mind spins. You know how my mind goes. So a long time ago, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I did a video saying the rich have no idea what the poor will do. And I was talking about all the stimulus that went into the people's savings account, and how I said it in that video that the people would end up holding on to that money, worried about the inflation that was going to come so that they could offset their paychecks with it. And now I know a lot of people went out and blew that money, but right now that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that savings dwindle because of the inflation, and they were offsetting their paychecks with their savings account to try and maintain their way of life. That's going to come to an end, and the rise of taking out debt in order to maintain their life is going to start increasing. Either that, or they have to start, cutting back on their standard of living, which nobody likes to do. That's the pain that people are afraid of or going to feel that they just don't want to deal with, and it's coming. All right. Hit the like button, man. We over 300 watching. He deserves more than 120. Yes, please hit that like button. It'll get more people. It'll get the video spread around YouTube, and more people will come in and join the chat. Laugh out loud, Bittner. I know an area. I may go hunt hogs. I'll let you know when I get one. All right. Let's go to the bottom. Okay. Regarding the Fed response to the pandemic, ever heard of Event 201? Yeah, I heard of it, but to be honest with you, I don't know the details of that one. So, and to be honest with you, like the information that I get, like I mean, like when we were figuring out what was going on during the pandemic, like we didn't know at the time what was happening. Like they were setting up these special purpose vehicles, and that was all brand new information to us. And so I started like, researching like through the Federal Reserve what was happening. I wasn't paying attention to like, somebody's like conspiracy theory about what was taking place. I mean, I was following the Fed's documents. I'm like, okay, so they're setting up the special purpose vehicle. They're setting up 12 lending facilities, 13 lending facilities. Some of them were open and operating. Some of them weren't. They were coming from the fact that the Treasury was funding it with $75 billion that they leveraged up to $650 billion. I mean, all this stuff that I was reading about these lending facilities was coming from the Federal Reserve itself, from their documents. I was going to their websites and learning about this stuff. And it was at that time that I was turning off other YouTubers, not because I didn't want their information, but because I wanted to make sure my information was original to me and I wasn't just like duplicating what somebody else was saying. And that's the reason why I was going to the Federal Reserve and getting that information, is because I wanted it to be like fresh from me and not, like I said, some other YouTuber's information that I'm just regurgitating. So all the stuff that I was researching, I'm picking up like on my own from the Fed. Occasionally somebody will send me, like, I would say that people used to send me a lot more articles than they do now, but I still get quite a few articles from people. And a lot of information comes from the viewers themselves sending me like links to, different Fed documents or different articles that they have read. So that's really where the information comes from. So event like 201, I haven't read up on that. No, I haven't. I haven't researched deeply into XRP, right? Only simply because I can't find Fed documents that talk about XRP. Right? That's the reason why I've been able to call out what the Federal Reserve has been up to. I feel that I've been fairly accurate on using the information that I got from the Federal Reserve in conjunction with my own profession of being, in the retail sales of lumber and having connections with mills and vendors and, people who are in the forest industry as far as logging, gave me a really good insight into the lumber market. So between all that, I think that I had a fairly good grasp on it all. I didn't really listen to anything else that was going on out there. I just kind of studied those particular things. Anyway, that's how I kind of done things. You were so accurate, they blacklisted you for a while. What are you on what part? Wonder how Black Friday will do this Thanksgiving. I don't think it's going to do very well at all. I don't think Black Friday is going to do well at all this year. Let's see. The sad part is the answer to the title is both. Yeah. Yui should be doing his videos out of a 2022 Toyota Camry TRD. His knowledge and dialogue on the channel has helped hundreds of thousands of people. We should start a fund. Laugh out loud, anyone? Yeah, I would love to drive around in a new car, but to be perfectly honest with you, I like this old car. Like, I don't have to, it sits in a parking lot, nobody notices it. Like, if somebody backed into it, I probably wouldn't notice it. It gets me around, it does what it's supposed to do. I don't have to stress about it, worry about it, pay high insurance on it, or anything like that. So, although I would love to have a new car, really, I only want a new car for about 10 minutes a day. After that, I mean, this old car, I really like having it. I mean, I don't really have anybody to try and impress with a new car, you know. So, yeah, I mean, if y'all want to buy me a Camry, I'd take it. Yeah, I'd do the videos from a Camry. Yesterday was the first video sent to my feed in a while. I meant shadow banned. Oh yeah, I do get that quite a bit, and I'm not sure exactly why. Like, YouTube when I hit like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, YouTube must have done something with the channel because it just really started moving after there. Now I figured it was the pandemic and people looking for information and my channel being so in tune on the lumber industry and the lumber industry with the lumber prices running up as high as they were, it just gave me like the I don't know, like just the perfect setup to have my channel really boom during that time. But I think that YouTube was really pushing my videos out there during that time. One, I was talking about lumber, and there was so much talk about lumber happening at that time that it was just like my videos just seemed to be at the forefront of everybody's list. I mean, shit, I would put out videos that would get 100,000 views, and now I put out videos, not that 8,000 views isn't a lot. I mean, that to me, that's just awesome that, there's 8,000 people who would come to watch one of my videos. But, as far as getting 80,000 views on a video, that doesn't seem to be the case unless I put out some kind of like super fear mongering video that just seems to scare the hell out of everybody. And then I can get a bunch of views off of it. But that's fun to do every once in a while for the money. But I'm not, like, me, I'm not really into that. So. You would. Yeah, I do. Go home. Yeah, it's time for me to go home. You're right, man. All right, civil unrest coming in Europe and the U.S. What's your take on that? Governments now have debt they can't service. Well, to be honest with you, I think they've always had that debt they can't service, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why the push for a central bank digital currency is so prominent around the world, is that at some point, if you can get cash out of the system, then you can take people into negative rates. Excuse me. And then at that point, you have them forced into the system. You have them force them to spend their money, force them to invest their money, and you can have much more control over the way things go. I mean, whether or not that actually gets to that point, I mean, we're still looking to see what happens, but I honestly think that the civil unrest and the food riots that will come from it, they're going to use that to push the central bank digital currencies. They'll be like, okay, you all hungry? Here, take these cards, take this, this app, and we'll load it up with a bunch of funds, and then you can go buy food. And then everybody would just jump on board with it. And there would be nobody would deny it. They'd be like, yeah, I'm hungry. Give me whatever it is that it takes. All right. Thanks for everything. Everyone hit the notification bell and select all. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, me, like I never ask for subscriptions and I never ask you guys to like the videos. I do ask you like the videos when I'm live streaming so that the video can be spread out there amongst, the rest of the YouTube community out there to come on board and, hang out in the comment section and stuff. But that's the only reason why I asked for you guys to like these videos, these live streams. I never asked for any of my other videos for you to like them. I figured that if you do like them, then you would like the video, and then I would know that I'm doing a good job. If I fish for that like, then I don't know if I'm necessarily doing a good job on my video. So I do appreciate it when people like the videos, when they truly like the videos. And if they don't like the video, hit the thumbs down. I mean, hit that thing and that way I know that I'm not doing a good job with it. And besides, whether you like it or dislike it, leave a comment because those three things is what gets my videos spread amongst the rest of the YouTube, community out there is by having engagements, whether they're good, bad, or ugly, it doesn't really matter. It's just as long as there's engagements happening, and that's what YouTube wants to see. And then for me personally, like, I I figure that if you subscribe to my channel then you really want to come back and you want to see some of this information. If I'm fishing for subscriptions out there, I don't know if I'm doing a good job on it. If people are just subscribing because I asked. If you're subscribing and I haven't asked not once for it, then I know that this channel is truly, is truly growing from a fan base that wants to follow this channel. So I know I'm doing good. I can't ask for those things. If I ask for them, then I wouldn't know if I'm doing it right. So having 105,000 subscribers tells me that I shouldn't change anything and that I should continue doing exactly what it is that I've been doing, and that's what I plan on doing. All my 300 block out rounds are rounds I made from Federal 223. Took a long time. Oh, you're reloading your own rounds, I see. Would the United States create another currency like the Jesus, Reich during Weimar Germany, the Reichsmarks? No, they're not going to create another currency, right? If they do create another currency, it's going to be a central bank digital currency. It's going to trade 1-to-1 with the dollar. Most people probably wouldn't even recognize there would be any difference between a central bank digital currency and the dollar itself. They would just not see it as anything differently, right? And a lot of people don't recognize the difference between a central bank digital currency and, say, a credit card. Like, they kind of assume those two things to be the same thing. They're not. A central bank digital currency would be something that is different from a dollar, although most people wouldn't recognize it as anything differently, and they would trade 1-to-1. Now, as far as like the additional currency, like, if it did come into an additional currency, it would always trade 1-to-1 until that other currency is out. Because if it did trade in anything else, then what you end up having is a situation that where you have good money that starts driving out bad, and whatever currency is the higher demanded one would get pulled out of circulation almost immediately, as the other currency would be the one that would be less favorable and pushed out there. It just simply wouldn't work. So you have to have those currencies. If you have two of them in the system, they have to trade 1-to-1 with each other until one of them is just completely removed. And so there wouldn't be really any difference between the dollar and the central bank digital currency for the average person who didn't recognize what the difference really was. It wouldn't trade any differently, wouldn't mean anything. Yeah, Triffin's dilemma. While they block the sales of guns with, no, like, in fact, okay. Eventually, yeah. The whole central bank digital currency will probably come under some kind of control. Just let your imagination wander. Whatever it is that your imagination can come up with, that's the problem with the central bank digital currencies. But you also have to think that it's also a confidence thing, right? So if you have a currency that people don't trust, then they're not going to use it. They'll find some other means. But if they can trust it, then they'll use it. It's the reason why the dollar is so popular today, is because people trust it. They don't necessarily trust Russia or China or India, but they do trust the United States. Again, it's the lesser of the evils, right? So, why not? Anyhow, with that being the case, then it comes down to whether or not the currency can be used, right? And if people don't trust the currency, then they're not going to use it. And if you have a currency that is limited, like, you won't be able to buy alcohol or cigarettes or fatty food or porn or something like that with it, like, or drugs, like, these are the things that will limit people from wanting to use it. All the bad stuff that you're not supposed to do, or the evil things that are out there, they're going to limit you from doing it. Then people wouldn't use it. So really, it's because people are willing to use it on bad stuff that gives it its popularity. Really, you think about it, drug cartels don't want Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin is used for drugs, right? Or whatever, or terrorism. No, Bitcoin is not used for that. Dollars are used for that. All drug dealers, all terrorists, all criminal activity wants dollars, right? So if there's a currency out there that is pushing criminal behavior, it's the US dollar that's doing it. No other currency does it as well as the US dollar does. And that's the dominance of the US dollar. That's what it has over everything. So when the central bank digital currency comes into use, you'll be able to do whatever transactions you want. Illegal, legal, doesn't matter. They're going to allow it to happen because they want people to be confident, right? They want them to be like, no worries. You're not going to get in trouble for, doing some kind of black market deal with cryptocurrencies. Because if they started busting people right away, nobody would use it. So they'll let everybody use it, let them get comfortable with it, and once they are all suckered into it, then they can start putting the pressure on. And that's probably how it'll go. It might take a generation or two for that to occur. But they're not gonna deny you the ability to use your central bank digital currency for whatever you want, because that would then prevent you from actually having the confidence to use it. Hey, thank you very much, Chris, for the $4.99. It's not a Camry, but it's enough for an ice cold beverage. Thanks for the open dialogue. I love the channel. Well, thank you very much for the $4.99. That is very nice of you, man. And I will definitely go buy a kombucha or something with that, because I love kombucha. It's funny not being a drinker anymore. Like fermented like teas like kombucha. It's like for me it's like it's not triggering. Like I don't get triggered by like non-alcoholic beers or something like that. But it does like kind of almost make me feel like almost not necessarily doing something wrong or bad, but like doing something like outside of like what I should be doing. Like I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's like my naughty drink or something. I don't know. He said he wasn't able to ask during the stream, but would you ask later on? He said he wasn't asked during the stream. Huh, I'm not sure what that is. Money is whatever people determine to be valuable, especially in hard times or war. Cash currency is called fiat for a reason. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, like, the dollar, all fiat currencies fail. Like there is very little doubt in my mind that at some point the dollar will fail. The stronger dollar right now is on its way. Like you have to go through a stronger dollar in order for it to fail first. So seeing a dollar grow stronger is actually a sign of failure taking place. I mean, that's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but that's what's taking place. Because the dollar is, as it loses its appeal around the world, and people say, I don't want the dollar anymore. I want to get out of the dollar. I'm done with the dollar. Screw the dollar, right? I'm not going to do any more deals in it anymore. Well, that's fine. But right now, there is plenty of contracts and people around the world who have already promised to pay in dollars. And they're promised to be paid in dollars. And all those promises, they're going to come due, and they're going to come due in dollars. And the demand for dollars is going to continue to grow so long as those contracts are out there. The other problem with it is those contracts get used as if they're dollars. So not only do dollars get used, but U.S. treasuries that are promised in dollars get used as dollars. But then you have other contracts that are not U.S. treasuries or dollars, but just privately issued contracts that are now also being used as dollars. How much dollar demand is actually existing around the world? And as those contracts start to diminish and all those dollars start to go and extinguish those debts and essentially disappear from existence, the strength of the dollar is going to continue to increase. And that's where like it's really difficult to understand. As people are trying to get out of the dollar will continue to grow stronger. Eventually it'll get to a point where it tips, and the dollar will not be any stronger than it gets to that tipping point. And when it does, people are like, okay, that's it. I don't want these dollars anymore. Now what do you do with them? And that's when they start going back to the United States, and we have that hyperinflation scenario that everybody talks about. If we make it that far, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we can actually get that far before people are just like, man, this strong dollar, I'm going to keep making, I get the best deal, I get the best interest rates in this or whatever, and we're going to continue to write contracts that are due in dollars. And if that happens, will the dollar fail? If we go into negative interest rates and cryptocurrencies or a central bank digital currency, could the dollar like literally just go into negative territory forever? Like, could that happen? Could they hold on to the power forever by doing that? I don't know. Like, all fiat currencies fail because negative interest rates weren't a possibility before. But now with the central bank digital currency and negative interest rates a possibility, Now what? Now that's a whole game changer. Like this is stuff that economists like Cantillon could never possibly have incorporated a negative interest rate into his theories ever. Like it would not have happened, right? So economists from this point previous, could never have incorporated this into their theories. From this on, this is all brand new theory for us. And the economists who know it best are like people who are at the Fed who are studying these things and the reactions that people have from it. I mean, I'm not saying those guys are all super smart and that you should listen to them for your advice on what you should do with your own personal finances. All I'm saying is that there's some pretty smart dudes up there who are considering all this stuff. I mean, if the uneducated economists can talk about it, then you know that these high level people are definitely considering it all. All right, question. Do you know about the SEC's proposed rule changes for short position disclosure? Do you have any thoughts about it? Unfortunately, I don't. I did see some like headlines on that, but I didn't read up on it enough to actually give you an opinion on it. I should probably go read a little bit more on that because it's probably going to have a bigger impact on the markets than I'm thinking it does. I'm still working in Boston, painting cars. Couldn't believe you were live. Right on. Well, I'm glad you guys made it here. It's getting really dark out, and I should probably be heading home soon. But I think you found something. Yeah? What is it? Are you into high tunnels, aquaponics, raising animals to eat? Yeah. Now my big thing when I had the hobby farm, I raised chickens. Like that was my deal. Is I raised the Cornish cross rocks, and I had like 32 laying hens, and I would raise batches of either 25 or 50 chickens at a time. And 50 chickens is a lot. 25 isn't too bad. But 25 Cornish cross rocks, you can order them through the mail. They take about 2 months to raise. You end up with these beautiful, plump little birds. A lot of people say that they're GMO bullshit things. No, they're hybrid birds. They're they're what they refer to as a terminal breed. They have taken a couple of different breeds of birds and they have actually combined them into a fast-growing bird. So you have these little tiny chicks that grow incredibly fast, right? So you have 2 months, they eat and drink like crazy. You butcher them up, you have like these awesome tender little birds. Now, heritage breed birds are not the same thing. Like you get like the Rhode Island Reds or the fancy speckly guys like the Barred Rocks or something like that. If you raise those birds up to about 6 months of age, you have something that's about as tough as a boot, right? They are not exactly the tasty little heritage breed that you would imagine like from like back in the day or something. They are a completely different animal. um Kind of more similar to like a game bird than really like what you would imagine you buy from like the grocery store. But those Cornish cross rocks, those fast growing ones, they're super easy. And really, like, I don't know why more people don't do this, but you could get like 5 buddies. Each of you like take 5 birds and raise them up, and you could do this like every other month. And really, you could have like 5 to 10 chickens every 2 months, like, that you could just raise and butcher and have for yourself. And they're really simple, easy to raise. They don't take a whole lot of space. So that was my deal, is that I would do that, as far as raising birds go. But then my buddy, he did pigs. He liked doing the hogs. And so between the two of us, we always had pork and chicken. Uh, what the name of that bird? It's called a Cornish cross rock, right? And so, I mean, they have like, you go to any hatchery. I mean, there's a whole bunch of hatcheries all over the nation. You just look for meat birds, and they have a few different ones. I mean, there's some heritage breed style birds that are, not going to be quite as like fast growing or plump as like the Cornish cross rock. Sometimes like the Cornish cross rock isn't exactly like an awesome little breed. They grow so fast that they end up having like some issues with like leg issues. Like a lot of times they grow so fast, so big that they literally pin themselves to the ground. A lot of them have like heart issues, like because they grow so fast, like their hearts can't keep up with it. So it's actually kind of almost like a cruelty to raise them, but they're already alive, so you're raising them for meat anyway. You just don't want to raise them beyond like the 8 weeks, because then it's just like it's more inhumane on the bird to let them continue to grow like that, because they'll get huge. I mean, they'll get up to like, I mean, I saw one lady, she was like, I don't know what to do with my poor bird. And it was like 16 pounds or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, this poor bird is just like immense. It could barely move around because she just let it go. And you're not supposed to do that with these birds, you know. Nope, they're not GMO. They're just hybrid. And I want a rooster just to piss my neighbors off. I loved having my rooster, man. That thing would go off about, I don't know, 45 minutes before daylight every morning. It was so awesome. I mean, they had a perfect crow. I miss them. I mean, I missed them. I never had an alarm clock, ever. I would, like, when that rooster would go off, I knew it was just like, okay, it's time to get up, man. I mean, he was cool as hell, you know. And it was just neat to see him out there in the yard, all keeping an eye on his hens and, yeah, doing his thing. I'm planning on growing tilapia. Don't you fish for a living, all nighter? You get all the fish you want, man. All right, I learned how to call chickens this past summer. Everyone should learn it. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's like, I got to the point like when we were butchering those birds, we had it like my buddy, he would do the plucking of them and I would do the evisceration. And I mean, geez, from the time that, you know, we would dispatch the bird to the time that it was like in the cooler would be like literally 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. We had the routine down. I mean, I could eviscerate a bird in less than a minute. And, you know, because you do, like, you know, you're doing 50 every week, you know, then you get pretty good at it. But there's really nothing to it. I mean, cleaning a bird is super, super easy. And, you know, Justin went out anyway. Getting the feathers off is the hardest part. That's the part nobody wants to do. What's everyone's opinion on the best egg layers? The best egg layer, in my opinion, would be the Australorps. I found that they are very low temperament, easy to get along with. You can have them like a fairly good sized flock in a tighter area. They don't fight as much, or, you know, get on. They have like pecking orders and stuff like that. So if you confine birds, then they start picking on each other pretty bad. But Australorps are pretty mellow temperament, so they do really well. Barred Rocks do really well as well. And then Rhode Island Reds, if you have like a lot of free range area, I find that the Rhode Island Reds are one of the best free rangers out there. They're, I don't know, to me, like, they just a little more wary of, like, you know, say other, like, you know, predators, or just being able to forage and find those things, like, just be, I don't know how to say it, just be out there and be like in the barnyard and be out there doing their thing. It seemed like the Rhode Island Reds just had that better instincts about them than just about any other bird out there. But that was just my experience with them. But as far as egg layers go, yeah, definitely Australorps and Barred Rocks, and then probably Rhode Island Reds after that. That's my opinion on it. Um, and then ducks. Like, a lot of people forget about ducks and raising ducks up. The khaki browns are a smaller breed of duck, and they lay like an egg every day as well. And some of the runners out there are pretty good egg layers as well. And if you've never had duck eggs are really good. Very comparable to a chicken egg, but until you go to bake, that's when you really notice the difference in the difference between the chicken eggs and the duck eggs is when you bake with them. So baking with duck eggs makes your cakes or whatever it is that you're doing like way better, like significantly better. If you ever want to like win a baking contest, find some duck eggs to make your baking dish with, and you're gonna kill it. It's getting late, guys. I don't know how much longer I should hang out here. What do you guys want to do? You got any more questions? I'm probably gonna head home. Watch your car battery. Yeah, I left this light on for like 6 hours one day, and I couldn't believe it. The car's still fired up. For egg layers, I prefer the shell. It's the crunchiest layer. Jesus. All right. Cochins are smooth. Yeah. Uh, do, do, do. I'm not sure what I'm going to put on the top of the fish. Beans and something else. All nighters talking. All right. we used a machine that tumbles the feathers off. No plucking for this chick. Yeah, we have one too. We had a chicken plucker, and ours was made out of an old wash basin, and it worked pretty good. It was like a big disc on the bottom. It had these like 6-inch rubber fingers that were all along the bottom of the disc, and then those 6-inch rubber fingers that stuck in from the sides of the barrel, and it would tumble the bird around in there. So basically, you take the bird, you whether you slit its throat or knock its head off, you bleed it out, and then you dunk it in what is it, 150-degree water for 30 seconds. And you have to do that. It's like almost like a temperature and timing thing. It's like it's got to be just perfect. And if you do it just right, the feathers come right off. They just like wipe right off the bird pretty much. And you can toss them in these chicken pluckers, and literally they tumble around in there for like 30, 40 seconds, and it pulls all the feathers off of the bird. And then you end up with like this clean bird, and it's just maybe a couple feathers you got to pull off of there, but they're for the most part just completely defeathered. And it makes cleaning them so much faster and easier. But yeah, I agree. When we were doing all those birds, we weren't hand plucking. We were using a chicken plucker ourselves. Are you still investing in any cryptos? To be honest, over the last year, pretty much since I bought the house, I quit buying anything, simply because I had to dump every dime that I had into getting into the house. So I was trying to build up an emergency fund, trying to build up that savings again and get back, into a position in which that I felt comfortable with investments again. So I have not been investing in anything. Like I shouldn't say nothing. I mean, I did make a couple of purchases, not much, just a few $100s over the last year or so. But I am now getting into a position in which that I am ready to just start investing again. As far as like speculating into the crypto market and then buying back into the stock market, I am waiting for a significant drop. Like I feel that at some point there is going to be a run to cash. Like everybody is going to try and get in that cash position, and they're going to sell out their gold, they're going to sell off their crypto, they're going to sell off stock, they're going to sell off real estate, they're going to sell off everything, and it's going to be very quick and it's going to be very short-lived. And at that time is when I want to start jumping back in. I mean, to hit that bottom. Now, whether or not I can time that, I don't know. So when I see those things start to take place, then I'm going to be watching the 30-year, 5-year treasuries. When I see the spread on that start to widen, then I take Alan Greenspan's like idea of corporate management's willing to invest. If they're willing to invest, then I should probably be willing to invest too. So that's what he said is the sign of corporate management's willingness to invest is the 5-year, 30-year spread widening. So if you see that happening, you see like everybody has moved out, trying to get into that cash position because they're so fearful of everything, of losing everything they had. People are crying. People are wondering what the hell is going on. Yeah, I'm gonna start taking that position back in again. That's the blood in the streets that you're looking for. And if you can dollar cost average into something like that, then hopefully you can land somewhere near the bottom. But that's what I'm up to, and that's what I'm planning on doing. So no, the last year I have been taking a cash position. Yeah. And I've been putting it in the bank. A lot of people say like, where do you put your money? I put it in the bank. I have multiple bank accounts, so I don't keep it in one bank because if you do have a failure of a bank, you don't want to be all in one basket, right? So I do have multiple bank accounts, but I keep my money in the bank. And the main reason for that is that if I ever come to a position in which that I want to take out a loan to buy like say real estate or something like that, I don't want to have to try and prove where this money came from. If it's sitting in a bank account, you don't have to prove it. You just get to just take it and use it. So that's another reason why I have it in the banks and not necessarily trying to hold it in a cash position, like under the mattress, so to speak. Because for one, it's incredibly dangerous to do something like that. I mean, your house burns down and it's gone, right? So it's just so easily disappears that way. Having it in a bank at least gives you some sort of security that way. It also gives you, the ability to, not have to question where or defend where this money came from when you're going to take out a loan or something like that. So that's me personally. Other people look at it much differently. I mean, I remember during like the initial onset of the inflation, everybody was running into silver, and they're they thought for sure that hyperinflation was going to cause silver to go up to $1 million an ounce or whatever it was. It hardly moved at all. That is actually pretty cool, that you could put your money towards something that has very little downside risk or very little volatility risk. And you think about it, silver is like one of the most volatile things out there, and hardly had any volatility to it at all during this whole time. So if it's protecting against inflation, it's against the volatility craziness of inflation. It kept it, it just stayed steady. It didn't go up with it. It didn't really go down. It just held steady. And, to me, having something that has little downside risk is pretty cool. I mean, that's what you're looking for. I mean, the potential to go to $1 million out of crypto, I mean, yeah, that's totally there. I mean, way more potential out of crypto than I think there is out of silver. But the potential to go to 20,000, on Bitcoin to $100 is a hell of a lot more, higher of a potential than, say, silver going from $20 an ounce to $2. I mean, you'd probably never see silver do something like that, but the chances of Bitcoin doing something like that would probably be pretty extremely high, in comparison. So anyway, I'm going to go home, guys. It's getting late. Thank you all for hanging out. It's been an hour and a half out there. 278 of you decided to hang out with me until the end. 233 likes with $38.94 in super chats, because you guys are absolutely the most generous people in the entire world. And you come to my channel to hang out, and I can't thank you enough for that. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.